Hello, welcome to One Africa Mission with your brother Dobia Anzanse. Please, if you are new here, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, One Africa Mission, and also follow us on Facebook, One Africa Mission. Like our Facebook page. We are missionaries, we are young Africans, and then we are more than ready to work with anybody to see, or who is ready to work to see the unification of Africa. We are more than ready to work with anybody. So please, if you are new here, join us. Let us all together come out with ideas. What can we do? What should we do? So that we can be able to place Africa in this new unipolar world that is coming up, because the old rules-based order is dying, gradual dying, and then we can see it, the old world Western hegemony, America and the West NATO hegemony, the rules-based order whereby they sit down and make the rules and the rest of the world will follow, is gradually ending. And then the new unipolar world whereby every country or every nation will be respected, or would deal among ourselves with respect, is taking place. And it is very interesting times. And then Africa can only play her role, in our opinion here in One Africa Mission. Africa can only play an important role on this if only we are able to unite or govern ourselves as African people. So please join us. Let us all work together to see this unification of Africa become a reality. That was the dream of our forefathers. So today, once again, we are going to Zimbabwe. And then we're going to listen to the president of Zimbabwe when he was asked, I think in Dakar, Senegal, the food, Africa Food Summit or something like that in Senegal. He was asked, I think we talked about this here in One Africa Mission. He was asked about the situation in Zimbabwe. You know, Zimbabwe is becoming and truly independent country. The blessings of Zimbabwe for the past few years is tremendous, and then we need to appreciate the leadership of Zimbabwe. For Zimbabwe has gone through hard times, and we all know it. And then so if today Zimbabwe is gradually getting her feet back, or Zimbabwe is gradually doing good things, then we must appreciate it and talk about it. You know, we must appreciate it and talk about it. So first of all, let's go and listen to the president of Zimbabwe when he was asked about the situation in Zimbabwe, what he has to say.
Standing success story.
Thank you very much. In Zimbabwe, we have adopted basic philosophy, which is village philosophy. One, we say a country must be ruled by the people of that country. Two, a country must be developed by the people of that country. Three, a country must eat what it kills. That is village wisdom. Now, in Zimbabwe, we have problems of food insecurity, and we said, how much food do we want per year to feed our country? We know we need about 2 million metric tons of grain. So we say, because there is climate change, how many hectares of land can we put under irrigation to produce the 2 million plus metric tons to feed the nation? And we determine how much yield does a hectare have. Once you've done that, you now know how many hectares you must put under irrigation to achieve the amount of grain you want to feed your nation in spite of climate change. That we have done, and we are now food secure. Secondly, we have been importing our wheat from Ukraine, our fertilizer from Russia. Now that side is problematic. So we decided to say we need about 240,000 metric tons of wheat. So how many hectares do we want under irrigation to grow wheat? And we calculated and put that number of hectares under wheat. We are now wheat sufficient. And we believe that next season we should be able to export wheat. We got the fertilizer which we are getting from Russia. We decided to find out what makes fertilizer. We discovered that because of the colonial mentality, we thought fertilizer was produced elsewhere. We have the materials in the country, and 3-4 months ago we've begun producing our own fertilizer. Fourth, it is necessary that we harvest water.
The president of Zimbabwe was asked, I think, about what is going on in Zimbabwe, and then he talked about village, an initiative that his government came out with, which he called village wisdom, village philosophy, which is an African thing, Ubuntu. You are because I am. And then he talked about a country must be governed by its own people, its citizens. A country must feed or must eat what they grow and grow what they feed. You know, they must grow what they eat and eat what they grow, which is very important because I think Ghana in the 70s also took this initiative, and it worked for them perfectly. But for some reason, they abandoned that philosophy. I think they call it, in Ghana, they call it Operation Feed Yourself. Operation Feed Yourself, whereby the country was putting up farms in irrigations, giving people incentives to go into farming. And sorry, excuse me. And it really worked for them. So today, they call it Operation Feed Yourself. So today, if Zimbabwe is doing the same thing, we must applaud the leadership of Zimbabwe for that. We shouldn't always be pessimistic as African people. You know, most of the time, the first people who will come and try to undermine the progress of Zimbabwe are the people of Zimbabwe. It's so pathetic, you know. The first people who will try to undermine, to demonize, to talk negative about Zimbabwe are the citizens of Zimbabwe. You know, we for some reason, I don't know, we as African people, colonization has damaged our confidence to the extent that we don't believe that we can do anything good for ourselves. We don't believe that anything positive can come from us. For us, as long as it is not coming from Europe, or it is not a European leader who is speaking, as long as it is African leader talking, that means it is not true. But we can also do things, positive things for ourselves. We cannot continue or every day talking about corruption. When you talk about the progress of Zimbabwe, then you're going to see citizens of Zimbabwe telling you, oh, it is not true. What the president is saying is not true. There is corruption, and there is no democracy. Na democracy we go eat. Na democracy, Nigerian man will ask you, na democracy we go chop. The same person who is talking about democracy and then who is ready to demonize his own country, to undermine the progress of his own country in the name of democracy, is ready to work for a Chinese firm and forgotten that China does not practice democracy. So this should tell you that democracy is not everything. But we have been conditioned through colonialism into thinking that, or through the West has convinced the African into thinking that even if you have democracy and you don't have food, you have everything. You have democracy with no good water, no good roads, and all that, then it's still okay for you. But that is a big fat lie. China doesn't practice democracy, but yet China today is leading the world economically. Russia does not practice democracy, but yet Russia is leading the world militarily. So why do we as African people will always want to buy onto what the West is telling us, forgetting that we as African people are not same as the West? And the reality is that the West doesn't practice democracy. The West never practiced democracy. What is democracy about Republicans and Democrats? They will never allow any third party or outsider to come inside. And yet they come to you and they are sorry to say, they are bombarding you. They can attack you in the name of democracy, whilst they themselves, they don't practice democracy. So it is about time we as African people, especially we the youth of Africa, we try to see things, positive things about our own selves. We try to see positive things about our leaders. There's the need for that. We need to support our leaders when they are coming out with initiatives like this, rather than always trying to demonize, to undermine everything that they are bringing, because the West is telling you that everything should be based on democracy, and the West is, and like the other day, sorry to say, the other day when I spoke about this issue, somebody was telling me that there is no freedom of speech in Zimbabwe. So even if the government is doing everything it can to provide sufficient food and to make the country move forward, you still wouldn't see it, purposely because somebody told you that there is freedom of speech somewhere, and for that matter, you don't have. What is freedom of speech to you? And the West, the America, the British, the whatever that you think are example of freedom of speech, there is not even freedom of speech in that country, in those countries. Julian Assad, go and ask yourself, if there were to be freedom of speech in the West, how come Julian Assad, the Australian journalist, the WikiLeaks founder, how come he is in prison? He's rotting in prison for speaking out against corruption in the West. You are talking about Nigeria being corrupt country, Zimbabwe being corrupt. So for that matter, what the president of Zimbabwe is saying is nothing, because there is corruption. Because the West told you that, the Western media told you that there is more corruption in those countries than there are in Africa. But for some reason, we are the only people on this planet who doesn't see anything positive about our own selves. I don't know what colonialism has done to us as African people. We can never see anything positive about ourselves. The only time an African citizen will see something positive about his country is when he is having an argument with another citizen from a different country. Like Nigeria, for example. A Nigerian citizen outside of Nigeria will never talk nothing positive about Nigeria until he meets a Cameroonian, until he meets somebody from South Africa, until he meets somebody from Chad, until he meets somebody from Zimbabwe. It's that time that he will try to feel big. We are the giant of Africa. But if you try to tell him positive things about Nigeria, he wouldn't take it. And it's not just in Nigeria, it goes across the entire continent of Africa. We see absolutely nothing positive about our own selves. It is about time we start to see positive things about and say positive things about ourselves. We need that energy, positive energy. and stop this negative energy thing. This thing was instilled on us by our colonizers, never to appreciate anything about our own selves. And you know, when Mother Nature gives you a lot and you don't appreciate it, somebody who appreciates it will come and take it. So Zimbabwe today is doing good. Or the leadership of Zimbabwe are coming out with initiatives that will prepare Zimbabwe for greatness. And then the citizens of Zimbabwe are not appreciating it. A Chinese man will come from China and take what you have because he needs it and take it to China to build his country. And then you follow up there and become his slave. A European man will come and take your resources. Because you don't see anything positive or anything good about what nature has given to you. And that has been our problem as African people. We see absolutely nothing good about ourselves. We see nothing good about our countries. And as I said, if you don't see anything good about what you have, somebody who sees good about it will come for it, take it to his country, build his country. You follow there and become a slave. And that is exactly what is happening to us. We have everything, and yet we are the most dehumanized people on this planet Earth. Why? Because we see absolutely nothing good about what nature has given to us. Just don't try to say anything positive about any African country in the presence of citizens of that country. They'll start pointing out all the negatives. Nobody is perfect. I am not saying our leaders are perfect. I am not saying that. They have their shortfalls. They have their own problems. Yes, they are not perfect. But at least we have to support them, because we ourselves who are accusing them are not perfect. So we have to support them. We don't have to always try to betray whatever they are bringing up. The betrayal among us is just too much. That is why we didn't see anything good in Sankara, that we have to go after him. With all the vision that he has for his country, we still were sponsored by the West to bring him down. We bring Nkrumah down, we bring everybody down. Everybody who has ever stand for the good of Africa, we bring them down. Because we don't see anything good in ourselves. It's about time we try to be positive. Speak positive energy, so that the future generations will adopt that positiveness rather than always being pessimistic. The pessimism is too much. We cannot continue to be seeing everything negative, negative, negative. Don't try to say anything positive about an African country. Especially, as I said, I have a lot of Zimbabwean friends. I have a lot of Nigerian friends. You cannot meet a Nigerian and try to talk something positive about Nigeria. I have a lot of Ghanaian friends. You cannot meet a Ghanaian. As a matter of fact, we are Africans. And you cannot meet any African and try to say anything positive about his country. He will try to tell you, oh, there's corruption. There is no freedom of speech. There is no this. There's no democracy. Purposely because the Western media has bombarded us into thinking that all those things, they have it. But in reality, they don't have it. There's nothing like freedom of speech in Europe or in the West. There is nothing like democracy in the West. There is absolutely nothing like freedom of speech. When they talk about corruption, they are the number one. And as I said, you are in Africa. You are crying your country is not progressing because there is no democracy. And I tell you that China doesn't practice democracy. But the Chinese man will leave China, come to your country, establish work, because he appreciates what is in your country. He will use what you have to establish work and then employ you. And then you will be there working and be thankful to him, even though his country doesn't practice democracy. But when your leaders are doing everything to create an enabling environment for you to be able to be your own boss, you'll be accusing them of not practicing democracy. What kind of people are we? It is about time we start to see positive things about our own selves. We deserve that as an African people. Let us support our leaders who are working hard for the good of Africa. I thank you very much for coming around. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel, One Africa Mission. And then follow us on Facebook, One African Mission. We are missionaries, and our mission is positivity, not negativity. Thank you very much for coming around.